Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guests we'll take a deep dive into the challenges, topics and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode. I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Angela Peach, Head of Digital Transformation International at Tata Consumer Products. So welcome, Angela.
Thank you, Craig. Nice to be here.
And one of the most amazing things, this is the first one we've recorded in person at the UK&I SUG office. So welcome to our offices.
Thank you very much. Nice place to be.
This is the latest in our series of interviews with senior leaders in the SAP community to hear about their career highs and lows and tips for getting ahead and the challenges they've faced throughout their career. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you about that, Angela. And just before we get underway, for this week's icebreaker, thought we'd ask, what's your favourite takeaway food?
Oh, favourite takeaway? I would still say an Indian, to be honest. A good Indian. There's a really nice one in Ferry Hill, local to where I live, called Bay Leaves. And if my younger daughter is ever home, it's always on the list of something to do. And she complains that she can't find another Indian takeaway in Sheffield anywhere near as good.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, you know, to be honest, that is exactly mine. Always the same. So what's your go-to dish?
Oh, I think it would have to be something like a boona or a karai.
Oh.
Yeah, not the tikka masala, that's my daughter's favourite, but and my husband tends to go for one of their specials. So there's normally a bit of variety, so everyone can pick and choose a bit, which is always nice.
I like that bit about them, yeah. And, you know, I'd go for the English dish, the chicken tikka masala, because I think that is virtually an English dish, isn't it? It's like a tradition.
It is. Yeah, travelling to India, you don't find it. I will tell you that.
Okay, so thank you for that. And you know, just to start things off, could you give us a little bit of background on your career so far, what led you to working in the industry that you're currently in, and when SAP became part of your responsibility?
Ooh, right. So I started life doing a production engineering degree at Brunel University. So I suppose I've always been in an environment where there weren't exactly that many women around. And that followed on from doing quite technical A-levels. So I was going to go into accountancy because that's what my dad did. And then someone said, oh, but you're doing maths and physics at A-level. Have you looked at engineering? And I thought, what on earth is that? So went and did a few sort of like taster sessions at universities. And I thought, it's problem solving. I always like solving problems. So that's really how I got into doing production engineering. Fortunately, I was sponsored by a company called Thorn Lighting through my Brunel University course, which was thin sandwich. Great way of doing a degree. 6 months study, 6 months out in the real world, thrown out there. Not much in the way of support networks. And let's remember, this is 1980, something or other. Mm-hmm. And no mobile phones. Yeah, so keeping in touch was the phone box on the corner and getting mum or dad to ring you back. But yeah, I did placements for them. I worked in Merthyr Tydfil, Leicester, London, and a spell up at Spennymoor as well. By the time the end of that, they said, what do you want to do then? You know, there were 3 jobs that I could apply for. Could go into sales. Thought, don't think sales is really me. I could go into IT, and I thought, that's narrowing it down a bit. So I actually took a job as a management trainee based up at Spennymoor, and did various sort of like placements within that, but particularly planning. So after that, I actually moved into being a production planner. So I planned electronic control gear lines, which was quite something to do, and regularly used to break the ERP system.
Good way to start.
So great way to start. Had a great boss who just let me crack on and do stuff. And I used to come in, they go, MRP runs failed. somebody's filled up the PV60 file or whatever it was called. And I'm like, oh, that would have been me. I was trying something out. And obviously it didn't go quite right. So that, I suppose, was my first interaction with systems. And then throughout my career at Thorn Lighting, I really became the manufacturing systems expert. Worked on all sorts of projects. So we implemented Barn, for those who remember that lovely system, and was a part of a European rollout of that. So that was our Millennium and Integration project that we did at Thorn Lighting. Worked in Sweden, Germany, France as part of that. So really good exposure to working across cultures, trying to get people to agree on requirements and processes. So yeah, that was really good. And somewhere along the way, I acquired an MBA from Durham Business School. I got a scholarship to do that, and that was another part-time thing. So it's sort of like that really led me through into Thorn Lighting, and then we were acquired by an Austrian company, and they used SAP. So they said, you're going to get SAP. We had a great barn system. It sang, it danced, it did all the things that we needed it to do. So then it was, how did I actually lift and move that model into the world of SAP? So we had quite distinct views of how we wanted it to work. So out of that, basically, I became a PP expert, and with a bit of WM thrown in there. And that was a great time. Really sort of like learning how SAP ticks. And I think once you suss one module of SAP and that incremental approach and how it builds its data, I think that takes you through in terms of just understanding its logic. Yeah, and it is very logical. It's a German system. It is so incredibly logical at times. And realising that you don't have the latitude that we had with Barn. Yeah, Barn sometimes allowed you to not be quite 100%. So there used to be this sort of like great big clearing account and this table where things used to end up. And if you tried that with SAP, it's just going to go, no, you haven't mapped this. I'm not letting you complete the transaction. Whereas Barn was like, yeah, okay, it's not quite right. We'll stick it over there into some sort of suspense accounting, you know,
until someone comes.
Until someone goes, oh my God, it's half year. What's all of this stuff? So yeah, lots of learning with Barn and realising actually SAP, because it is that logical and structured, actually helps you a lot. And I think it makes you look at your processes and what you do. So then, how long did I do at Thorn Lighting? I must have been there nearly 20 years, I think. And with the Austria takeover, just more and more of the projects and the ideation behind those projects was going to Austria. And I'm like, I'm being given things to do, and they're not my ideas.
Yeah.
And I can't see how they're going to fit with our model. And we were restructuring. There were some redundancies to be done. And I put my hand up and said, it's time to go. So off I went. Then my husband and I, we tried sort of running our own electrical contracting business. And it was, when was that? 2008. So just as the market crashed, we decided to start up a business. Really not recommended. And we realised that somebody needed a job. So my husband, he'd ended up in IT doing project management. So we went first to contract. So the CVs went out. On the Tuesday, I got a phone call. On the Wednesday, I had a telephone interview. On the Friday, I was in London at Tata's offices. Monday, went into the factory over in Eaglescliffe and ended up with a job offer. So
rapid.
Pretty darn rapid. And I don't think I've ever seen them recruit anyone as fast since, to be honest. So yeah, it was really quick. And they'd got a project running to actually implement WM. And it was my background in PP and WM, which said I was a good fit, actually, for the project. Actually, I was a maternity cover for the consultant. And she was based down in London, but obviously this job needed to be up in the north because of where the factory is. So I was like, okay, yeah, I remember bits and pieces of that, playing with MRP and whatever. But the lady employing me said, it's fine, don't worry about it. I used to do that role. I know all the detail. I can help you out. Great, Michaela. Love it. Thank you very much. 6 weeks later, they reorganised and she went into the project management team with a completely different reporting line. So it was time to teach yourself So as well as having a PP and WM project going on, it was also, handling all the calls and working out what needed to happen. But it's great. Love having problems to solve. And that was a really good project. And we redesigned a lot of things. We put in repetitive manufacturing just because it fitted better with the nature of the business. And we got a template really for how we now operate all of our factories in the international division. So it's a repetitive manufacturing model with a bit of process for doing our blending, which is sort of like our unique thing, as you can imagine, for someone who makes tea.
Yeah.
And I've been there now, it'll be 15 years in April. And in that time, I've gone from being the PP consultant, maternity cover for Lady came back off maternity cover, and so I got, and then she announced she was pregnant. So I got another maternity cover. So 2 years.
That revolving chair.
Yeah, well, not quite so. I
Don't sit on
don't
that
sit
chair.
on that chair, definitely not. So, and then after the second maternity leave, she didn't come back. So I became a permanent member of the team, worked up and ended up running that team. And then things have changed as sort of like the Tata ownership of the Tetley sort of brand really came about. More and more of our back office has gone. So a lot of our IT functions have moved to India. So it's a much smaller team now that we have actually based here. But we're still there. And I really head up that very small team and represent the international interests in the digital space, really. So it's quite an interesting dynamic, lots of dotted lines in terms of reporting structures, which makes life interesting. Having many masters to serve, it's a nice sort of like juggling act, I think. But yeah, and that, I suppose, brings me up to date. I've been in the role now for about 18 months. I think I'm still getting to grips with it. Sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? Is this me? How's the production engineer ended up in this role?
That kind of imposter syndrome, which I think is quite a healthy thing, to be honest.
Sometimes. I think so. I think every now and then you need to give yourself a bit of a reality check, but realise that you've got a body of work behind you that has got you to this place. Yeah. So, even though you think, I can't do it, it's no. There's skills. Yeah. You've got to go back into your skill set and pull out the right thing.
And it also helps that other people obviously have got you in that position, so they believe you can do it too.
Indeed. I think the good thing about Tata, in general, they're very strong at promoting from within. Okay. Not just within Tata Consumer Products, but across the piece. They do like to bring people in, and in India, we actually run quite a program where they take in a very large cohort of about 30, 40 people. And these are seen as sort of like Tata managers of the future. And they move them around through the businesses as well. So you don't just necessarily see people come up through one company. So we've had people who've moved across from the Tata hotels sort of like area into our business, and also out the other way as well. So yeah, good company to work for. They do tend to believe in their people.
Oh, fantastic. And I can imagine then that your team's kind of widespread as well, perhaps?
It is. So in terms of, I've got a couple of guys in the US who report to me, a couple of people in the UK, but then the matrix sort of like really spreads out. So all of our infrastructure support is handled out of India. Our main SAP COE team is also based in India. So really with this role, I gave up responsibility for the SAP platform. It was too much to do, as well as looking after the business interests. So I'm now a bit more on the outskirts in terms of the SAP direction, but still have a voice very much because of my background and my experience. So I know we've got an upgrade coming. We've got a few bits and pieces that are end of life, like BPC and SUPM and all those nice things that SAP sell you and go, yeah, here's something to solve a problem, and you work on it and sort out all the bugs, and then 5 years down the line, it's time for it to go, and what replaces it?
Because we've got something new and shiny
Something new and shiny. Some of it's new, some of it's maybe not so shiny. I mean, from a point of view of SUPM, we were very involved at the beginning. And in fact, the team we had worked with the SAP Labs people in Bangalore, sorting out quite a lot of the bugs and the issues with SUPM. So on one visit to Bangalore, the guy was with me, and we went into SAP to meet him, and the team came down, and there were big handshakes and hugs all round because he'd really helped in terms of sorting out that particular solution. Where it goes now, there seems to be sustainability is a very wide-ranging topic, and I think it's evolving in terms of what's needed in that space. I think legislation and government reporting is still forming in that area, and therefore how do you actually try and go, what do I need from a system, when actually you're not being told what you need to report? So there's general guidelines out there in terms of sort of different levels of emissions that we might going to have to track, the packaging and your improvement projects that you're doing to remove things like plastics from your products. But there's no clear definition still. So SUPM goes, but what do I to replace it with? And it seems like a complete basket of products that's not easy to do. So that's a real head scratcher, I think, for us in terms of where we go there.
We know our community, but we don't know yours yet. Why not share the benefits of your UK&I SUG membership with those who don't know about us? The UK&I SUG referral scheme rewards you for helping to grow and develop our community. You can check out the link in the description to find out more about how you can get involved. Terms and conditions apply. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
From what you've said, your experience and breadth of knowledge in SAP's come from varying different roles that you've all almost fallen into in some instances,
Yes.
and the very deep end in others. And obviously now as we're looking at kind of the transformation, like you said, some products come into what can be seen, I suppose, of end of life, and how has the likes of the digital transformation needs of the company affected those products and solutions you work into?
I think for us, the digital transformation is really about leveraging what we can out of our S/4HANA product now that we've got it in place. There are elements actually of our SAP platform that I think you could go, you recognise that from the 1998 implementation. I think because of the way SAP is structured, you make some fundamental decisions when you're doing that first configuration. You set your business up in a certain way and it behaves a certain way. Then regardless of the upgrades that you actually do, you're taking that model with you. So even though we're in S/4HANA, we're in a standard GUI environment. We haven't really gone Fiori. I think if I was doing a complete greenfield, and had the ability to really redesign the processes, really do the process re-engineering, I'd go Fiori. But I think trying to convert your existing sort of GUI base actually to that is quite hard. And yet Fiori unlocks, I think, some of the digital transformation things in terms of the embedded analytics. Mm-hmm. And how do I square that circle? It's quite hard because Fiori, in terms of its authorizations, its access, the data that it uses, we're finding that quite hard to unlock it in parallel to our GUI. So in some ways, we've done the hard work, we're in the platform, but we're not leveraging the best actually from it. And that's what we've got to do really over the next couple of years. And that will help us in terms of speeding things up, making our processes a bit smarter and slicker in terms of what we do. So yeah, it's SAP, love it, hate it, whatever you want to sort of like say about it. Where you start stays with you, I think, in terms of the product. So if you're in there a long time, you're in there.
Yeah. And that's really interesting. I mean, I suppose going back to, what we say about every customer being on their own journey. No two journeys are identical, but there are a lot of similarities. Like some customers will be going to S4 just to unlock the potential of Fiori. You've done it slightly different. Other customers have done technical upgrade and then putting the extra things on top of that. It's what's right for your business at that time.
I think so. I mean, for me, the move to S4 HANA, it was something I was working on for, I suppose, 18 months before the project actually became a reality. So I'd like to, big shout out there to all the SIGs that I came along to. I think I went to everything that I could possibly go to just to find out, what was the S4 HANA journey about? What tools and techniques could we do? And try and sort of like build that business case. It got accelerated for us because Tata Consumer Products, as we became, because we were Tata Global Beverages beforehand, they acquired some businesses internally. They shuffled some things around in the Tata Group. And there was a statement made to Mumbai Stock Exchange that we will have a single invoice to our customers in India for tea, coffee, salt, spices, pulses. And how do you do that when you're actually in 3 different instances of SAP? Okay. So that became the business case. And that's really, I was lucky in that I didn't have to actually go through that challenge that I think some people are. And I think that is a tough one to actually say what you're going to do, because unless your future vision leverages all of those really nice things, and they're not just sexy things, they're nice things, about making your processes real exception driven. That design that Fiori is supposed to give you, which is, I log in, here's my landing page, here's my tiles, here's what I need to do. So instead of having a go run this report, find out what you need to do, if you could implement it correctly, it would be logging in, it would go, these are the things you need to look at. This is what you need to go on. But you've got to have such robust processes behind that to actually make that approach work. Do any organisations really do it that well? Probably if you're some of the pharma companies where you are so process driven. But the rest of us who don't quite have that tight regulation, I think we muddle through a bit.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of the unique blend and the blending earlier, and I suppose coming back to that uniqueness, are there any unique challenges do you feel that working in Tata Consumer Products when it comes to SAP that you have any unique challenges there for your organisation and your industry?
Well, we're now in one instance of SAP. Which is quite unusual to have Indian businesses actually in the same instance as international businesses. Okay. Yeah. So although we're in one instance, we go to market in completely different ways. So making sure that those can coexist is quite a challenge at times. Yeah, so international, we're very EDI driven, very integrated. Yeah, it's not about people and hands on keyboards and whatever. Whereas India, often we've got more people, so we can do that. That I think is slowly changing though, and there's more and more recognition that people are not as cheap as they were in India. Yeah, so they are looking at solutions with integration. Maybe not always using SAP products, but very much looking at things like RPA. Yeah, so things that we'd outsource to India in some of the back office, they are now being, what's the correct word? Botified doesn't sound quite the right word, but but yes, bots are going in that place. So we put out something which is quite maybe transaction or data entry heavy, and now they're going through that phase of automation of it, because again, cost pressures will start to come in India as well. You've got an increasing middle class, who are looking for more, higher jobs, So you've got to offer those jobs. They can't just be data entry people anymore.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, that's very good. And when we're looking at, you mentioned earlier about being on the project, I think for 18 months and coming along to special interest group meetings. So that kind of leads us towards, where do you go for help and support and information in the world of SAP?
I think the user group's an excellent place to start. It always feels like a really good, safe space. There's no one in there with a hard sell. Yeah. There are always people who've been through something similar to you, who are looking maybe something. As you say, everyone has their own journey, but there are a lot of similarities. So it is about developing that network as well, out of the user group, finding people who look at problems in the same way as you. So if you ask the question, you're going to get something that you can interpret successfully for you. I think I've ended up in user group, SIGs, where I'm thinking, not quite sure this is where I need to be, but, if it wasn't for the user group, we wouldn't have used Model Company as part of our S/4HANA implementation to help us structure our business process master list. So I think outside of that, it's hard to find other places. It depends upon relationships that you've got with integrators, but you'll only get so much for free. Then it's into, this sounds like a scoping piece of work, and I suggest a 3-week engagement that will look at this and whatever. So it's hard, and we've all got budgetary pressures that actually say, how much can you do that? So you become resourceful yourself. Mr. Google is everybody's friend in terms of there. But user group for me is really the best place.
Thank you very much.
That's quite all right. And I am not getting a discount on my my membership fees as a part of this. I would like to make that clear.
This is a genuine review.
This is a genuine interview. Thank you.
And how would you rate, just going back to what you mentioned there about SIs and things, how would you rate the level of support provided by software vendors and IT partners?
I think it depends on how you get your elbows out and who you are. I get my support is a bit different because it's done through India, because that's where we're licensed through. So if I want support, I have to go through my account manager in India. So again, it means making sure that anyone from the SAP COE team is engaged in the issue that I've got, that they're going to help push it through as well. It's a bit of a tricky situation for me. I think there are possibly some people in the UK that could be used for me. It's just finding out who. SAP is such a large organisation. That how do you actually find who are the people who are going to help you? I think from some of the user groups I've done, the enterprise architect team always seem very open in terms of saying, if you want some help, reach out to us.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. That's great. And yes, there are a lot of helpful people there, and that can help support that. And so if we're looking at kind of your journey and your learnings, are there any key learnings that you can pass on to others, if you like, on your SAP journey?
If you're going to do an upgrade, it's all about data. And it still is about data for us even now. I think that's not to be underestimated. Getting your data right. SAP is so precise in terms of that need. I think the other thing is authorizations, SAP security. Get that right, get your data right, get your security right, and any project that you do will have fewer issues. And they're hygiene things, yeah? They're the things that are going to drive significant volume of tickets whenever you do your upgrades, yeah? So make sure that those are well addressed, and then the issues that you get coming through are the real issues that you need to sort out. I think engagement of users is the other thing that you always have to have. If you're tackling something new in SAP, try and get someone actually seconded out of the business to work on the project. Otherwise, they just get dragged off. Yeah, you're never someone's highest priority if they've still got their day job. So if you've got a significant sort of project, you need a lot of user time to actually make it happen. And I think if you have that time, you actually condense the timelines because you've got access to a business user experts, yeah? Especially people who are empowered to make decisions. You'll move your project faster. Very, very hard to do. We're talking about a master data project, so it's not going to use MDG or an SAP tool. But even those conversations we're having about what those processes look like is, do we need to second people to make sure it's right? Because the data's the foundation.
Thank you. And apart from ignoring data and roles, authorizations, that kind of thing, getting the security completely wrong, is there anything else organisations should perhaps avoid doing when embarking on SAP projects?
What should you avoid? That's a good one. I think don't overcomplicate it, and don't be overambitious. I think about phases of your project. Get the fundamentals right first, yeah? So think about your project and having a roadmap, yeah, of what it is that you can try and do. Implementation and upgrade projects are very draining on the business. We found that, yeah. We pushed people hard. We had a lot of user involvement, as well as people doing day jobs. And the stress levels were significant. So you have to be quite realistic about what can the organisation take on board, yeah. If you're going for revolution, recognise that you're going to have to resource it appropriately, yeah, and provide plenty of support for people. But yeah, I would say be realistic about what you can implement. Make sure you talk to people who may be using that beforehand. How easy was this to implement? How difficult was it? Yeah, did it take you longer than you actually anticipated? For us, in terms of our S/4HANA upgrade, because a lot of it was we know what we're doing, it was because we changed some of the data structures, some of the org structures that went with things, that actually became then our biggest problem. So it wasn't so much about the processes. They were pretty sort of like done and dusted. But it was the new stuff, yeah.
Thank you. And I suppose now shifting slightly to people rather than systems, I believe you've been engaged a little with our Women in SAP community.
Yep.
And obviously we're looking as the aim of that community is to engage with more women in the world of SAP, make sure that they're getting involved in the community, hopefully getting them to speak and, really, drive that increase of women in the world of technology, so to speak. But is there anything you feel organisations can do to attract more women into the sector?
I think we have to make it less intimidating. Yeah. What is it? It's about solving problems. Yeah. So tech is used to solve problems. And really, I suppose, demystifying it. I think I find it very hard to actually describe what my job is at times. And I have 2 daughters. And I remember the times that you say, "What is it you actually do, Mum?" And it's a bit hard to actually say, well, I work with the system, but it's not about the programming. And I think a lot of people, when you talk about working with systems, think, coding and tech stuff and that. And it's not, where we actually need people is in that business analyst role. The people who I always say, if you remember Hitchhiker's Guide, I need the little Babel fish so that I can sort of like take what the business says and turn around and translate that into SAP speak, or at least part tech, that actually gets you what you need. And it's having that combination of the two is what's needed. Yes, I think what's happening in the coding area with schools and that sort of thing is really moving on a lot. And I think I can see more girls that are going to come up through that route. But again, coding then normally leads to the ABAP roles, and people then often transition from that onto the business side as well. And I think actually now people move far more actually between things. So once you've actually got some pull into some sort of tech, I think you'll find that you'll move around. Did I think I would be here? However many years ago it is from leaving uni? No, I didn't. Yeah, I thought I was going to be doing some engineering stuff, but I'm not. I'm fairly and squarely in the world of digital now. That first job that I was offered, that I thought, I don't want to do that. That will pigeonhole me. Yeah. I could have ended up in a completely different place because of that. And I really like that aspect that I've got, which is understanding the business, having that overview of the business. So I think we need to make sure that we don't over-techify it in some ways and make it quite approachable. I think it's a great network. Been to a few of the events and they're really welcoming. And again, a pretty sort of like safe space for conversations that happen and a good sort of, I won't say party vibe, but they're a good crowd for for a drink or two.
I would agree on that as well. And obviously you've been through that process on your journey, as you said. And so what would your advice to women be looking to work in, well, specifically the SAP sector?
Don't be frightened of it. Yeah. SAP itself, as I said, is so logical. There is a massive amount of stuff out there in terms of educating yourself and understanding it. Big advocate of Open SAP and the MOOC courses that are available there. And take the opportunities. That's been what my career has been about. People saying, could you have a go at doing this? And it's always been yes.
Yeah, say yes more.
Say yes. Until you get in the job, and then when people start giving you stuff, then you have to learn to say no.
Yeah.
But say yes to the opportunity, yeah? And even though that little imposter thing is sat on your shoulder sometimes and going, is this you? Is this you? Ignore it. Go for it. Be brave.
Unless you try, how will you know?
Exactly. It's exactly like trying new foods, travelling to new places. Be open-minded, I think, is the main thing.
Wonderful, thank you. And just as we come to a close now, if you looked into your crystal ball, what do you think will be the biggest change we'll see in the world of business and or IT in the next 5 years?
Gen AI. Yeah. How will that actually start to integrate with your systems, with people's lives? Yeah. It's starting. Yeah. Chat GPT. Go and say, I would want the job description for this job, blah, blah, blah. I think it's, for me, I have to get my mind around it. Yeah. Being of a slightly more mature years, it's a different way of working. Yeah. For me, it was my hard work. Yeah. So when I was writing my specs and essays and business cases and everything like that, it's my hard work. But actually, with things like ChatGPT, get your prompt engineering right, you'll get so much actually done quicker. Yeah, you'll get the framework for something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not plagiarism. And I think that's the bit that sort of like doesn't sit comfortably with me yet. I still quite haven't come to terms with that. But the fact is, if you can say into your prompt, I'm looking for something that does this, is structured like this, give me links and everything like that. Yeah, it would actually make our lives easier, make us more productive. So I think that that's going to be something. I was reading something actually that my husband found, a Bill Gates article about agents.
Okay.
Yeah, and really how that's what we will have. People will have agents, and they will be more than a bot. It will be something that will have a conversation with, something that will predict your needs, that looks at your calendar and goes, you should be doing this, and do you, have you booked your train for this journey that you're going on? And that's quite good, but quite scary. I think, the whole privacy and your data and how you share that. So I think we're all going to become far more aware of our data and what we do. But yeah, Gen AI, it's big, it's huge, and it will change us.
Yeah, certainly, Green. Thank you for that. And I think, there's so many opportunities. There's also challenges, and there's
Correct.
also
Yeah.
controls that need to be, we see governments now, trying to regulate the industry because we've all seen war games, etc., and the potential of what could go wrong, and that's the big thing for me. I think, there are so many opportunities out there and so many good things if used right, but we also see so many things when they're used wrong and
Yes.
for the wrong reasons, and I think that really needs clamping down on because there, again, with everything, there's so many opportunities for those that want to use it for bad rather than good.
It's always disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got the potential to do so much and to actually make us more productive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But
has.
someone's always going to find a different way of doing it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, Angela, thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you very much for coming in and joining us, and for your time, for your insights, and, to our listeners, thank you for listening. We hope you found our conversation valuable, and please make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep smiling.